I would like to get better at locking in my guards.
Okay. So when you're fencing, what's it like right now when you're locking your guards?
So sometimes it's something I have to consciously think about. Like whenever during drills or in bouts, instead of just like I'll either like move my arm to where I think a guard is, and then I'll have to tell myself, okay, no, let me actually get in this proper guard.
Okay. I'm gonna come this way out of the light a little bit. Come on up. Show me an example.
So right now, I think my weakest guard is 5th. So there'll be some times where I get in the guard, and instead of being what it should be, because this is what I would used to consider 5th, but it's a high 3rd.
Right.
Over time, I've been locking it in, making it an actual more giving more of a conscious decision to get in my guard. And I've been slowly noticing that I'm locking it in a little bit more, but they're not second nature yet.
And it looks like you aren't able yet to have the tip comfortably forward.
That's also a roadblock I'm trying to overcome. But I see myself on occasion some of those things that I have to think about to fix, and then after it's fixed, it's there for a little bit.
Okay.
But not second nature yet.
So you've got your torso very square to me. Does that affect your block?
It sometimes can. It can also leave my chest open for hits. I'm focusing on the thing I'm working on is coming all the way to the side. Compared to having my chest out, it would give my partner less space to hit me.
It would also, I can tell you as a fencer, allow you to use the strong of your stick to defend yourself rather than the weak, so you feel a lot less impact. If you have the tip out with a lot less impact, given the way these bounce, it would tend to bounce out, letting you immediately riposte. So one thing that's interesting about this is, hand me this paper. Come back to the position when you're trying to get sideways into your stance. So come into stance. So when you do that, notice your knee drifts to the inside. Yeah, notice how turning the shoulder for you is synonymous with turning your hip and your knee in. So, first, let's individuate your knee from your hip.
Okay.
And that will make it easier for you to stand like this as opposed to that. Because no one wants to be like that. That's terrible on your knees. All right, so come into a fencing stance facing the camera and put your front foot on the stool.
All right.
Come a little closer to the stool. Yeah, it doesn't have to be a deep stance. All right, what I want you to do is just to come forwards. You can feel, is your foot over your knee? Is your knee over your foot?
No.
Is your knee over your foot?
Yes.
Leave your foot on the, is your knee over your foot this way?
No.
No, it's to the outside and it feels terrible, right?
Yes.
Inside doesn't feel that bad either.
This is a feeling I'm very used to.
Yeah, so go back and forth and feel as you do that how your hip joint has to change shape here. Right now you don't have your lower back and your hip differentiated from each other, but look. And if I inhibited the movement of your shoulder, you can still do that. See that? So what I want you to do is to intentionally go to the inside, come forward. Intentionally go to the outside, come forward. Don't do it enough that you strain. Keep it comfortable. Then middle. All right? I want you to do that a little bit. Here. 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 All right, the construction noises have stopped. I'm going to open up this door and give us some airflow.
All right.
Until around 11 or so, we get the direct sun. After that, it gets nice.
Well, it's not. Well, I mean, we're not too deep in the summer. We're starting getting in like the 111, so okay right now.
Now, this week, and there's a bunch of background noise, so this week we should be hitting 100 by the end of the weekend.
Oh, nice.
So summer's here. All right, can you feel what's going on in your hip there? How that changes depending on each angle?
Yes.
Okay. It's really easy to sense that when you've got this and you're paying attention to the body mechanics of this simple movement. It's a lot harder to try to learn that while you're wrangling what you're doing with your upper arm. Then you got the bonky stick. Go into a left-hand stance and do it on your other side.
Fun pop.
I apologize for chewing gum at you. It's this time of year. It's what I do to keep my allergies at bay.
Oh, good.
Yeah, make sure your foot stays on the stool. I mean, you're wearing all black, which makes it a little bit interesting to see. But inside, the outside, the middle, they all feel different, right?
Yes.
So by paying attention to what wrong feels like, you can then recognize wrong when you do it later.
Mm.
If you're only saying I have to aspire to good and you ignore everything other than this, and you're not sure if you're getting there, that sort of traps you. You don't know what that feels like. If you feel this, you know, oh hey, I've done something funky with my stance. If you do this, you know, oh, I've turned
Inward.
inward, I'm not standing
Something's
properly,
not right.
right?
And then there's this, which is great.
Much easier, right?
Yes.
All right, so come down. Get in your stance facing me. Okay, now your shoulders are forward. Can you keep your knee over your foot while turning your shoulder back? Oh, and the answer is yes. Now, I would say that your stance is slightly too wide and your lead foot needs to be a few inches further towards the couch. Now, is that easier to maintain?
Yes.
Good. Do an advance and retreat. How's that feel?
That feels great. Most time I would have gone out of form. And I would have felt my leg going in.
So how long did that take?
Less than 5 minutes.
All right. So by recognizing what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
you can change what you're doing. Or as the guy who founded my discipline said, when you know what you're doing, you can do what you want. How do you know what you're doing? Learn to sense what good and bad feel like, and you don't have to look. So, lie down on the carpet. Put your forearms parallel to the floor. Now we're going to do the same thing here.
Mm-hmm.
Now this is an exercise we do in class, so it's not a mystery to you, but we're going to do it a little differently.
Okay.
First off, you have a tendency not to know what parallel to the floor means, which means you're not aware of the difference between this angle and this angle. So try to start off with 90s. Okay? You can relax your hands, there's no reason to knife hand them. Now what I want you to do is to come up. Feel this changing shape?
Yes.
Yeah, pay attention to the armpits and down, and pay attention the angle in the elbow matches the ankles in the armpits.
Most of the time whenever we do these, I mainly notice my ribs opening up.
Right, and they need to. But most of the time when you do this, you have your elbows out here. In other words, you're having trouble maintaining an awareness of, are your elbows to the outside or your elbows to the inside? So, down. Forearms stay parallel to the floor. And then the angle of armpit and elbow stays roughly equivalent. And you get to about here and you're out of place for your ribs to move. Notice you're starting to arch your back under here, right?
Yeah.
So you have reached the end of what you know how to do through here. Little movement, little movement. Pay attention to those ribs. Pay attention to how you can open up the armpit. Little tiny movement, little tiny movement. It's not about the size of the movement. It's about the quality of the movement. You're getting better and better at changing the shape of your chest. Here your chest is relatively down. Here your chest is relatively up because your ribs are changing shape. And down doesn't mean compacted and slumping. Look at them apples. Different, right? So turn your palms up. Everyone has a favorite. This is clearly not yours. If you try to force that to the triceps, it's fundamentally different. Now you went palm up and notice your elbows came out towards me. This is tricky for you, right?
Yeah, kind of just keep.
So what we're gonna do? I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
I was just say just keeping them in. I just get lost. I guess I get focused on the motion and they just start to drift.
Right. The same syndrome as the turning of the body with the knee. So what I want you to do is to do one where you feel like you're in line, one where your elbows are way too close together, and one where your elbows are much too far apart. And go back and forth between those three. And the next one, your elbows almost touch or however is comfortable. So you can feel how the shoulder blades move on the floor in each of those positions, right? Parallel to the duck. There you go. So by becoming aware of when you're making a chicken wing, versus having your elbow forward, you have a much better control over your back because you know what your back is doing.
And so that can help me properly, just properly position myself. Then earlier where it was more lower half focused, now it's kind of me having a more precise upper body.
Yeah. And that control won't just help for fencing, that'll help for anything else you want to do in your day. All right, leave that. Just relax for a second. Yeah, you're typing and you're chicken winging. That's carpal tunnel. Lots of people do this because they can't bring their elbows straight to the floor. It's very common. Lots of people try to do a guard stance and they're here. Well, that chicken wing does terrible things to the wrist. It forces it to bend. They can't be here. So if I'm going to do a martial art that requires that elbow in, and they're stuck here, everything feels wrong, and when they hit a bag, it's terrible. All right, come on up, grab your lightsaber. Get into stance, and check out what third and fifth feel like now that you can tell what your back is doing.
Oh. I feel my shoulders.
Good. Good. Now, can you get the back of the handle back and the tip forward now?
Yes.
Oh, good. Now, can you get parallel in your stance without collapsing your knee inward? Yeah. And oh, look, your tip's forward. How long did that take?
Yeah, I think less than 5 minutes.
So 15 minutes flat, and look at what you've got.
Heavy? Very heavy. My biggest hurdle as of recent. I have many ways to fix.
Now, everybody has lots of stuff to fix. Now, let's see if we can refine this. Now, you turned your shoulder in. Look what you did. You immediately threw the knee in, right? So now, go back and forth between squared and not squared. And what you're sensing for is, can I tell when my knee is over my foot too far? I'm throwing you off balance there, right?
Yes.
Too far in, that's no good. Or just about right. So go back and forth.
I'm noticing more what's coming from, I'm noticing the subtle movement in my hips that's happening.
Good. All right, now let's make it harder. Keep your guard in that position and change around your guard. Is your knee in or out? Don't look.
It was in before I adjusted.
Okay. I would say it's still ever so slightly in, but a significant improvement, right? And you come forward and back and keep that knee over your foot. How do you have to change shape to come forward and back while keeping the knee here, not here, and not there? Now you've gone to a high third again because you're way out there and not defending your head anymore, right? Yes. There you go. All right, turn your shoulder back and keep your knee over your foot. Yeah, good. Stay there. Stay in stance with your shoulder back and your knee over your foot so you can stop rocking. Good. Now bring your tip forward. How's that feel?
Much different from what I usually consider fifth.
Okay. Can you bend your knees? Sit down in your stance some. Good. So you can bring this in so that you're protecting your head with not this part of your saber, but this part, right?
Yes.
And notice, what are you doing when you do it? You're opening in the armpit. Oh, it's almost like all this stuff relates to each other, right?
Yes. Because, well, it's just more what is it? Parts of the body I'm associating with each other. Because originally I was making everything like kind of more elbow centric.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm realizing like what helps me move with my elbow is how open my armpit is.
And where your shoulder moves, yeah. So if I'm going to be, get to where the camera can see me. If I'm going to be here, like you want to be, my shoulder blade has to be a little bit towards my spine. If it's out here, my shoulder blade's away from my spine, then I have to sort of curve a little bit to make that happen. I can get really strict and really narrow and pull that shoulder blade back. The armpit angle gets smaller and tighter as I go. So now if you practice third and fifth, can you make them really distinct from each other? All right, over here.
All right.
Just so I'm not glaring at the sun, get in stance. You're tall enough you won't have the sun in your eyes. Go sideways like you did before, so people can see it before after. Yeah, you stepped out to the side and you did that. Notice you did that now. And so now you can bring your foot forward, and you notice if you drift out to the side with your foot. You still drifted ever so slightly, but it was way smaller than before. All right, so there's your third. That defends the side of your head. And are you collapsing your knee? Yeah, ever so slightly. And as soon as I asked you to fix it, or asked you if you were doing it, bang, you brought your knee right over top.
And shoulders are still this feels?
And you were able to keep your knee where it's supposed to be. And now your stance is significantly more profiled, so you can choose whether you go square or not. That's right. If you have to rotate to make a block or to get rid of something so you can come back,
It doesn't mess up my form.
It doesn't mess up your stance at all. You can keep your knee in position while changing where you go. And you can bring that 5 to the top of your head and put the tip forward and stay more or less profiled. And the better control you get over your shoulder blade, the easier it will be to stay profiled the whole time if you want to.
Well, perfect for you, the shoulder, right?
So, left side.
All right.
You've done nothing with your left side. Let's see how much you've taught yourself just in terms of awareness. Come into a third. Okay. Yeah, you can feel everything's weird, right?
Yeah, well, now that I know what wrong feels like, I can adjust from there.
Yeah, so your stance is just an absolute mess right now. Your knee is in, you're turned square, you're dropped out chicken wing. It's a giant mess. So come into stance and see if you can take what you've learned from your right side and bring that awareness to your left side. All right, now come to fifth. Good. Now, is your knee to the inside or outside on your left? Don't look.
Knee's a little bit in.
Knee's a lot in. Still in. Still in.
Still in?
Now it's about right. You have a tendency to turn this heel outward a little bit, which is complicating. There you go. Now your knee's up top. You're efforting really hard to pull back here because you want to be really parallel and pretty for the camera, right? Yeah, let yourself come a little more forward. Let yourself, there you go. And now you start relaxing this, and that's easier to hold, right?
Yes.
So hold the guard at fifth, and then do it badly this way. Do it badly this way. Don't change up. Go back to fifth. Don't change any variable except what I'm helping you feel. And you can feel, oh, I collapsed outward. That's terrible. That's awful.
Just right.
Yeah. It's one thing to say, hey, you need to learn what good feels like.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we have a low ceiling here, so that inhibits your guard a little bit. But once you know the difference between what good and bad both feel like, then you really get some options. Cool?
Yes.
That help?
Very much.
Okay, thumb up for the camera then.
Hmm?
Give the camera a thumbs up if that actually helped you.
I'll give it 2.
Cool. 2 thumbs up.